Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today on something that is just a sudden, profound tragedy. The fatal plane crash near Statesville, North Carolina, that took the life of retired NASCAR champion Greg Biffle and six other people, including his wife and his two children, on December 18th.
It's a story that just sends shockwaves, through so many different communities, motorsports, obviously, but also aviation and the local North Carolina communities they were so involved in.
Right. And our goal here is to really move past the initial headlines. We've pulled together all the reports to look at the chilling technical side of the investigation, the immense personal loss, and the incredible legacy of both Greg and his wife, Christina.
And you have to start with how fast it all happened.
Yeah.
The flight was airborne for just 7 minutes.
7 minutes. It's unbelievable. A family trip for a birthday, and it turns into a catastrophe that quickly.
And the first clue, the first personal detail we have from inside that plane is just gut-wrenching.
The text message.
Yeah. Cristina Biffle, Greg's wife, sent a text to her mother that just said, "We're in trouble."
Wow, we're in trouble. That just freezes you. But then there's this technical piece that is, it's just fascinating in the darkest way.
It is. The aviation experts looking at the tracking data, they saw this unusual jump right at the end of the flight path.
And they said the plane was incredibly close.
Incredibly close. We're talking a matter of feet, maybe seconds, from pulling off a survivable emergency landing. And then it just lost control right at the very end.
That part being just 1,800 feet short of the runway, that's what makes this so haunting. It makes you ask what happened in that tiny, tiny window of time.
Exactly. Okay, so let's walk through the timeline. The plane was a Cessna C-550, built in 1981, so an older jet, owned and registered by Greg Biffle.
And it takes off from Statesville Regional at 10:05 a.m. Eastern.
Right. And almost immediately they have a major problem. The data shows they make this incredibly abrupt, tight, 180-degree turn to try and get back to the airport. They reported engine trouble.
So is a turn like that, is that standard procedure? Or does that signal absolute panic?
It signals a crisis, a huge one. Usually you try to fly straight, find a field, something. But turning back like that, at low altitude and low speed, pilots call it the impossible turn.
The impossible turn.
Yeah, because it's so risky. You bleed off critical speed and altitude. The fact they even tried it tells you that flying straight ahead was probably not an option. They were betting everything on making it back to that runway.
And they missed by less than half a mile. It came down about 1,800 feet from the runway, and then there was that terrible fire after the impact.
And the human cost. Just immense. Greg Biffle, he was 55. His wife, Cristina, 35. Their son, Ryder, just 5 years old.
And Greg's daughter from his first marriage, Emma, was also on board. She was 14.
Yeah. And then 3 others, Dennis Dutton and his son Jack, and a close friend, Craig Wadsworth, people in the racing world would know as a former hauler driver for Kenny Wallace.
It's just devastating. And that detail about how Christina's mom found out, the technology of it all.
It is. After that text, "We're in trouble," her mother, Kathy Grossu, got an automated SOS alert from Christina's Apple phone, the kind that triggers on severe impact.
So the phone told her before anyone else did.
Yes. She gets the text, then the SOS ping. She calls the airport. They confirm there's a fire. And that's how she knew. Just a nightmare unfolding in real time through her phone.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's pivot to the investigation itself. The NTSB is on the ground trying to figure out why they fell 1,800 feet short.
They've got a big team on it, 16 investigators on site. And they did have one really critical recovery. They found cockpit voice recorder, the CVR.
So that's the audio from the cockpit.
Exactly. The pilot's conversation, the engine sounds, any alarms going off, it's been sent to DC for analysis, and that's huge.
But there's also a major piece of evidence missing.
A massive piece. The plane, because of its age, wasn't required to have a flight data recorder, an FDR. And so they didn't find one.
Okay, so for those of us not in aviation, explain what that means. What are they missing without the FDR?
Well, think of it this way. The CVR is what the pilot said was happening. The FDR is what the plane was actually doing. Without it, you lose all the precise data. Control movements. Did the pilot pull back on the yoke too hard? Engine parameters. Is the exact fuel flow, the oil pressure, flap settings, landing gear position. All of that is gone.
So they have the human reaction from the CVR, but not the mechanical reality.
You got it. It means when they try to figure out why it lost control in those last few seconds, they won't know if it was a pilot error or if, say, a control surface physically failed. They have to piece it all together from the wreckage and what they hear on that tape.
And there's another mystery they've pointed out. they don't know for sure who is flying the plane.
Yeah, the pilot mystery, as they're calling it. 3 people on board had pilot's licenses, including Greg Biffle. But the NTSB can't yet say for certain who was at the controls.
How do they even figure that out?
It's tough. The CVR can give clues, who's giving commands, but often it comes down to forensic evidence from the crash site. Who was in the left seat? It's a critical question to answer.
And then there was the weather. Low clouds, some drizzle. They haven't called it a factor, but that couldn't have helped.
Oh, absolutely not. Trying to fly that impossible turn back to the airport on instruments, in low visibility, with an engine failing, it pushes a pilot to the absolute limit. We should get a preliminary report soon, but the full final answers, they could take a year, maybe 18 months.
So while that investigation unfolds, we have to talk about the legacy of the people on that plane. Starting with Greg Biffle. The Biff. I mean, his importance to NASCAR is just monumental.
It really is. And his path was so interesting. He wasn't one of these guys who was a prodigy at 18. He worked his way up. He was dominating a series called the Winter Heat in the mid-90s.
And that's where he got noticed.
That's it. The legendary driver and broadcaster Benny Parsons saw him, and he personally went to Jack Roush, the head of Roush Racing, and said, "You need to hire this guy."
Wow. A recommendation from Benny Parsons to Jack Roush. That's a golden ticket.
It was. And that partnership defined his whole career. What makes him so special is his versatility. He was the very first driver to win a championship in both the Truck Series in 2000 and the Busch Series, what's now Xfinity, in 2002.
That's an incredible achievement. Only 2 other guys have done it since.
Like NASCAR's version of a Triple Crown. The trucks and the cars handle so differently. To master both is just. It's elite. And he won a race in all 3 national series, which is also a very exclusive club.
And then his Cup career, of course. Driving that iconic number 16 Ford for Roush. 19 wins, came so close to the championship in 2005, finished second. Won some huge races.
Huge. The Southern 500 twice, the Pepsi 400 at Daytona. He was one of the best there was for a long, long time.
And he never really quit racing, did he? Even after he stepped away from NASCAR full-time.
Not at all. He was competing in the SRX series, with all the other legends on short tracks. And he was even racing and winning in those crazy stadium super trucks that jump off ramps. The passion was always there.
Which is why, in 2023, he was named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers. A no-brainer.
Absolutely, a lock. But, the story is so much bigger than the racetrack. The legacy he and Cristina built together, off the track, it's just as powerful.
She was a powerhouse in her own right, wasn't she?
Oh, completely. Cristina founded her own real estate company, Leisurely Real Estate. She was named to the National Association of Realtors 30 Under 30 list back in 2019. A huge deal. And she was just nominated for their big Good Neighbor Award this year for her humanitarian work.
And that work was hands-on. It wasn't just writing checks. I mean, the story about the helicopter.
Yeah, that's incredible. Greg was a private helicopter pilot, owned a Bell 206. And when Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina in 2024, they didn't just donate money.
They flew missions.
They flew rescue missions in their own helicopter. They loaded it up with food, water, satellite, internet gear, and flew into these cut-off mountain communities that no one else could reach. They were legitimate heroes after that storm.
That's just an amazing story. And it speaks to their character. Like that other small detail about the Santa letters.
So heartbreaking. One of the last things Cristina did before getting on that plane was finish the last few of over 2,500 Santa letters she had personally sent to kids in need this year.
2,500 letters.
Yeah. It just shows you where her heart was,
Yeah.
Taking care of other people right up to the very last minute before their own family trip.
A trip to Florida for a birthday. With their kids, Emma, 14, and Ryder, who was 5. Emma was from Greg's first marriage.
Right. And we should acknowledge, that part of his life was complicated and very public. His divorce from Emma's mother was messy. There was a lawsuit involving secret cameras where he was found responsible for invasion of privacy.
I remember that. The damages were only $1, but it was a tough public chapter for him.
It was. And it was before he found this life with Cristina and their son, Ryder. Ryder was the 5-year-old. His grandmother described him as a bundle of energy who loved F1 cars and dreamed of being a driver.
And that leads to maybe the most painful detail of all. What Ryder's grandmother, Kathy Grossu, shared.
Yeah, it's a detail that will stick with you. She said her biggest regret is that the day before they left, Ryder begged her to let him open just one of his Christmas presents early.
And she said no.
She said, no, wait for Christmas. It's just that universal moment of a grandparent's regret layered on top of this unthinkable tragedy.
So you bring it all together, you have this family defined by skill and speed and service, and their lives are just extinguished in 7 minutes, falling 1,800 feet short of safety.
The contrast is it's staggering. You have the technical analysis saying how close they were, how survivable it almost was, and then you have Kathy Grossu's advice to everyone. Cherish the last words, the last hugs, because you never know.
And that 1,800 feet, that's where this all comes back to the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder. Without the flight data, that's all they have.
Everything hinges on those voices. The decisions they were making under impossible pressure in those final seconds.
So the question for the investigators, and really the thought to leave with all of you, is this. What happened in that last mile? What single input, what decision, what mechanical failure separated a hard but safe landing from a total catastrophe?
The answer is in those last 1,800 feet. And that voice recorder might be the only thing left that can tell the story.
A heavy thought for sure, but it just underscores that razor-thin margin in these situations.
Thank you for joining us for this.
It's an important story, to remember the people and to understand the details.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.